When Mary's husband, Charlie, died, she asked if I would do the eulogy, and so I said I would and did. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be doing this at this time. I guess I thought in my own mind that Mary would always be here finding new composers and making it into modern notation, and thought she would always be around. But so it's difficult. But I thank the committee for asking me to do this. I'm going to read most of what I've written down because there are two reasons. One is I want to keep my composure, and two, if I get going on stories like all of you have, it will be for quite a long time. So hopefully this paper will keep me in line, and my wife will, I'm sure, let me know from where she's sitting if I don't. I'll obviously be repeating some things that you already know, but again, it's part of doing this job. All who have known Dr. Mary Terey-Smith, whether as a student, a colleague, or a friend, understand the influence that she had in our lives. Every one of you had an individual relationship with her, and it was so special. And that's how she was to every one of us. It is not how good you were, but how far she could help you develop your skills. If you were willing to work and put in the effort, then she would work with you. You all know that. Not only did she require you to study her music history classes, and by the way, I too, when I came here, sat in the front row and still thought, I'm never going to get through this course because I can't understand it. But you do learn after a while. Let me tell you, it sort of begins to grow, as you all know. You begin to get it. And so we were introduced in her music history classes and in performance preparation, but she was also a mentor and sometimes was like a parent and a friend. So as we know, Dr. Mary Terey-Smith was born in Hungary, and this is part of what you have seen in her obituary, so I'll read through. Her father was a lawyer, and she told us that the training she received from both her mother and her father had positive influence on her life, giving her the solid principles of right and wrong. She was taught to be strong, to be an independent thinker, and to stand up for her life choices, and she sure did. Dr. Mary Terey-Smith received her first degree from the Liszt Academy, as you know, in Budapest. She was the first woman, I was told by Mary, to be accepted into the conducting program at the Liszt Academy. Now, you all knew that, but anyway, she told also all of us these stories. But anyway, upon graduation, at the age of 19, she was engaged as the conductor, as you know, of the Tatabánya Symphony Orchestra from 1953 to 1956, and she was forced to leave, as you all know, also Hungary following the 1956 revolution. And she immigrated to Canada, and by the time she got there, she had $5 left. She divided her time between teaching music in Montreal and working as a coach and conductor at the Opera School in Toronto. It was during her time in Canada that she met and married Charlie Smith. Dr. Mary Terey-Smith received her MA degree in music in Vermont and was awarded her PhD in musicology in 1971 from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester. MTS, as we all knew her, was appointed to the music faculty here in Western in 1967 and retired then in 2001. Bellingham was a good solution at the beginning for Mary and for Charlie because Charlie was a boat builder and he needed to be by water. And so Bellingham worked out. When I was here, Charlie we were met many times, but he had me come and help sand the bottom of his boat, which was in dry dock. And Charlie didn't talk a lot, but we had a great visit when we got busy working on his boat. A large number of voice majors, I skipped a line if I may, please go back. This was I want to tell you a bit about Dr. Mary Terey-Smith's early years here at Western because I'm the oldest one here, I think, of the students. And part of her faculty assignment, which has sort of been just put in a sentence, was that she was assigned to be the director of the opera workshop here. Now everybody knew that, but she built that workshop just like she made the Collegium Musicum so wonderful. So I want to talk just briefly about that. And she was assigned this because, of course, her conducting training and her experience that she already has had. And so the opera program went from 1967 to 1975. A large number of voice majors, both undergraduate and graduates, came to Western State College, as it was called in that day, to receive training and have stage experience in opera performance and to study voice with Dr. Jacob Hamm. I might add that many of those singers today went on, to sing in opera companies in Germany and in the English National Opera, the Metropolitan Opera here in New York, as well as many of them becoming university faculty. It was an incredible time because so many singers wanted to study under Mary's direction in the opera workshop program, because she taught us correct style and all of those things that were needed. And she did scenes rather than whole operas most often, so that we had more chance to experience different composers. I was a graduate student in 1971 to 72. So, okay, that's how old I am. Okay. It was in 1971 that Seattle Opera, to show you how well her opera program was received, Seattle Opera had a university opera workshop program one winter. Universities from Montana, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington were invited to participate. Each school could bring a number of opera scenes, and they were coached by the members of the Seattle Opera staff. It was not a contest, it was simply a time of sharing, and it was great to hear lots of other schools presenting their opera scenes as well. At the end of that time, Dr. Mary Terey-Smith was told that her students were the best prepared stylistically, musically, stage presence, and were some of the best singers of all the participants who attended from those 4 states. I roomed with, and we stayed in homes, we stayed wherever they could help us get in. The home that I stayed in, there was a singer from Montana there, and it was a great time of sharing in that way as well. How fortunate for all of us singers who were interested in the opera workshop program to be there at this time, because in 1970, as you know, Dr. Mary Terey-Smith founded the Collegium Musicum. Not only did we receive wonderful training in the opera workshop, but we also received wonderful training in performance practice in Renaissance and Baroque music. And we performed many arias and duets with instrumental accompaniment in stylistic correct manner under her guidance. And she would give us an oratorio or opera aria of the Baroque era, and then she would have us in the da capo, as you know, ornament the return of the A theme. And then you would take it in with fear and trembling, and she would very succinctly tell you whether it was okay or not. But you did learn to do it, and it was a fabulous time. So we felt so lucky to be able to have both the opera workshop and the Musicum Collegium. Also during that time, one other event occurred. Mary was up for promotion to become tenured faculty, and the word was out that the faculty was going to reject that tenure application. Now, she had 4 strikes against her as we perceived it. 1, she was a woman in an almost all male-dominant faculty. 2, she was Hungarian. 3, in her short years at Western Washington State College, her teaching and intellectual ability was very, very obvious. And 4th, as has already been mentioned, she spoke her mind directly and truthfully. And these issues did not always work so well. So a lot of the students at that time, in 1971 or 72, got together, we pressed Mary for names, and gathered as many letters from former students And at that time, not one of her students in undergraduate who went on to graduate school in music history ever had to take a remedial history exam. That's one of the things we found out in doing this, getting these names. We got letters from former teachers that MTS had studied under. We got letters from people in Europe, Canada, and the US who had worked with her or knew of her work and could write letters of recommendation. A stack of letters was taken to the vice president of this university, and the good news is that she stayed on the faculty. Later in the year 1975, MTS spent an entire summer in Europe. Upon her return, without being consulted, she learned that her faculty assignment had been changed and that the opera workshop program was removed from her teaching assignment. She was caught off guard by this and did not have any chance to present her case to continue as director of the opera workshop. This was a very difficult time for her. She called me, and that's the most emotional I've ever heard Mary when this event happened. The positive effect, however, was that she enlarged her efforts with the Collegium Musicum, and therefore many, many more students could participate in Collegium Musicum, and it began to grow exponentially, and so that was a real plus. She taught and developed highly trained musicians like many of you who are here today. She taught many hours over and above her normal workload. You remember how she would have rehearsals way beyond quite late, and sometimes poor Charlie didn't have dinner because Mary was still in the rehearsal. So Charlie learned to make dinner also. He told me so. But anyway, those many hours that she spent, she was willing to do to help what we hear being played here today. It's just such a thrill to hear all of you playing and what we'll get to hear yet this afternoon. You perform concerts in many places, and at least 5 or 6, I'm not sure how many tours to Hungary and Europe.
6.
My wife and I, 6?
Yes.
Thank you. And my wife and I were invited to participate in 2 of those with fabulous experiences. Everywhere concerts were played, they were received with great respect for the superior quality of performances, you all know. MTS's expertise in early music through the classical period of Mozart was world-renowned. She frequently gave research presentations for musicological societies all over the world. She contributed a number of articles to the new revised Grove's Dictionary of Music and Musicians in 2001 edition. She did research in libraries in many, many countries where she found music that had never been published, as you all know, and she transcribed it into modern notation and conducted several recordings of that music. She found music of Rameau, Fasch, and many others. And speaking of, if I may mention, Rossini, whom Bert mentioned, she loved to come to our house and have lunch with us, and we'd sit all afternoon around the table talking. I always said it's like going back to school. But she brought one time some songs by Rossini, who she had just found. She said, "Well, you have to have your singer sing these. These are delightful songs." So I still have those, and they're a real treasure to have. And I do teach a few singers yet to this day. When Fischer Dieskau, the great German baritone, recorded some Baroque cantatas, he hired Mary to come to Germany and coach the instrumental ensemble in proper style and ornamentation. She was also acquainted with the famous conductor Claudio Varo, Zubin Mehta, Daniel Barenboim, and others. As I stated in the beginning, MTS demanded real effort from all of us, her students. She would say, "I do not give compliments when they are not deserved," and you know that. During my time of study over 4 decades ago, there were basically 3 levels of her evaluation of our work. Now, I'd love to know if this held true for you all, so I'll read them to you, and then you can affirm or say that she changed. Now, the first was, it was like this. If you were really making good progress, and you were really happy with what you were doing, she would say at rehearsal, "Well, it's coming along, work on it." Okay, so that still stayed true. If your study and music preparation was not well prepared, then you would hear the dreaded words, "Well, this won't do." And you knew you were in serious trouble if you got those words. And the ultimate compliment or praise that she would let you know that you'd done a very good job was good. And that meant so much to us. Friends, Mary's sudden and untimely death has been a great shock to all of us and difficult to accept. But I urge all of us to pass forward, like your playing of the Today is, to pass forward what she taught us and what she did for each of us by taking interest in us and being such a wonderful teacher and mentor. Besides all of her excellent teachings, her writings, her publications, her wonderful recordings, her legacy resides in each of you. Use it to the best of your ability and pass it forward.
I want to thank Joan and Bev for asking me to share something about Mary. I certainly can't claim to have known her the best or the longest or have had the most experience with her, but I'm deeply honored to be part of this event and deeply honored to have been part of the circle of musicians and friends that we all have gathered here today. As a faculty at Western, of course, I knew Mary as a colleague, and she was a good colleague, an opinionated colleague, an interesting colleague, someone that I admired very much on many levels. And I also had the good fortune to attend one of the Collegium tours in Europe that she led, and I got to see her in a different way and see her interact with the students in a different way, and that was a really marvelous experience for me. I learned a lot from her, and I learned a lot about this incredible affection that all of these people have for her and why. So I'll try to share a little bit of what I saw for those of you who didn't get to have that experience. One of the things that I saw on tour and also as a colleague was her fantastic sense of humor. One of the first interactions I had with Mary on campus was my first quarter here. I went to a Collegium concert. I wanted to see what is this Collegium thing about and what is this lady up to, and I listened to her talk about things over the microphone that I couldn't possibly understand for a variety of reasons. And after the concert, I thought I should go down and try to meet her a little bit and ended up helping to carry the harpsichord back to her studio. And when we got to her studio, she explained that she had this extra wide door so we could get in the harpsichord. And I said, "Oh, Mary, I thought it was from too much goulash. She needed that." And she looked at me and she smiled and hit me. And from that point on, I knew we were friends. And she always had a twinkle in her eye and a sense of humor, often a deprecating sense of humor, and could be towards you, could be towards a number of people. It was searingly funny on every occasion. It was mentioned earlier by Arnie and also by Bert that she was indefatigable, a force of nature really, indomitable, unstoppable in many ways. And that's something that I was amazed by from being on the tour. Here was this woman who, again, no one knew how old she was, but she was clearly old enough that she didn't need to be walking all over Europe like she was, and she was the one who seemed to never tire. The rest of us were wondering when we might stop and get a pastry or a beer or something, and no, there was Mary plodding ahead of us, showing us yet another Loman Lewin, or some sight. And think again of her physical condition. I mean, there's trouble that she had with her feet and her legs, and she never let on. There was no sign of effort or difficulty that she showed to the students or to the rest of us. I think that was truly incredible. Well, again, unstoppable. There was a moment in Italy when we were all struggling to board a train. A bunch of people with a bunch of instruments and a bunch of luggage and stuff. And the Italian trains are not the most organized affair. And naturally the train was late and we were really struggling to get on. And I happened to be up in the front, and there was an elderly woman, probably not older than Mary by any substantial degree, who was struggling physically to get to her seat, and she had a cane. She was moving very slowly, and I hear Mary calling from the back, "Glant, Glant, what is going on?" And I back to her said, "Mary, there's a woman with a cane." She said, "Glant, tell her I'll break the other leg if she doesn't get moving." So that was Mary on tour, unstoppable, indefatigable, maybe even impatient at times, impressive as well. On that same tour, I got to see Mary's, her ageless quality. Again, we don't know, or didn't know, maybe still don't know how old she was. We don't know. No one will ever know. But it really didn't matter because she didn't show her age. And I'll never forget when we were at the beach, and Nick Stroll was talking about this earlier. We were at the beach. I expected that, sure, the students and we would end up at the beach. I didn't really expect to see Mary there in her bathing suit, not just sitting on the beach, but running around in the sand, playing in the water. Nick says that she was in the water with him in the Adriatic Sea, being pushed around by the waves and giggling like a young girl. Just incredible. Completely unself-conscious. really a guiding light for all of us. But I think of all the stories I can think of Mary, and again, I have so few compared to everyone else here, but the story that really impresses me, I think, is the story of this concert. As a teacher, I stand in awe of this concert and of the labor of love that I see being presented by students coming from literally far and wide, not only sharing beautiful music, and it's really beautiful, but sharing a community that she created for us. And again, as a teacher, just to imagine having that kind of impact on so many people, it's astounding to me, and she achieved that. And again, the concert, of course, is a tribute to someone who's a great teacher and a great scholar, but I think more than that, it's a labor of love. It's a tribute to the love that she shared with us as students and friends. The love of life, the love of laughter, the love of music, of course, and the love of people. And how lucky we are to have had our stories intertwined with hers. Thank you for coming.